Good afternoon, everybody. This is That Dog Training Show with Tanya Yarbrough, and I am still Tanya Yarbrough. Same thing as last week. That's very strange. This is where we talk about the dogs we love and the stupid human behaviors that we don't, also known as shubs. So today's topic is stop chewing my stuff. Yeah, it happens. You got animals. Things are going to be chewed. Actually, we have this, I have a history of having at least one more cat than I really desire. So right now I have 3. I've had just 2 before. I have had actually just 1. Why? I don't know. I think because I hate myself. But the reason I bring it up is that the cats are just as culpable for all that chewing. I mean, I've come home to my apartment before and just kind of stopped at the door and realized the cats weren't meowing for my attention or food, and something was wrong, and then I realized the cats ate the blinds. So, and there was this one particular cat that I am surprised he lived as long as he did, because he managed to chew through at least 3 cords on a fan, at least 1 or 2 of the computer wires, which then encouraged the other cat to learn to do the same. So I was sure that someday I would come home and actually find a cat completely sprawled out straight, like, with its hair standing on it, fried. Like, I was afraid there was going to be a fire. And so it's a common problem among all kinds of pets. And if you have dogs or people with dogs, that's just going to happen. It's going to go down. They're going to do it eventually. And so this show on how to train your dog not to chew objects was inspired by Miss Whitney Peach. So I'm giving her a little shout out because she gave me a shout out and tagged me in her photo of her lovely Maltese that decides that Apple Wire computers are like freaking awesome to chew on. So, and that's expensive to replace. So anyway, this is for you, young lady, and all those who are finding themselves ready to kill their beloved puppies because they're completely frustrated. And chewing can be anything. It can be something that has to include your laundry, your furniture, your blinds, your hands. So the way I approach this is that, first of all, we have to understand a little rudimentary reason as to why your dog, I'm going to avoid the cat issue, the dog will chew your stuff. And I've broken it down to 3 main reasons. One is either teething or teeth pain in the mouth, something like that, which is usually includes a lot of slobbering as well, a lot of salivation. So sometimes we forget, if we raised a dog from a puppy, we saw them teething phase, blah, blah, blah. We forget about when they get older, it's possible they can also have like a toothache, a little abscess or something, and then the process of the abscess growing, there's an itchy phase, an annoying phase where they will chew on something just because they're trying to self-soothe that pain. And then there's the second reason, which is it just feels good. It's primal. It feels good. We like to chew on things. We chew on our pens. We do all that stuff. It's self-soothing. It's self-reinforcing. It's just a way to deal with a lot of anxiety, possibly, or overexcitement, that sort of thing. And the third reason is for possession. And in fact, going behind the previous behavior to chewing is just putting the dog's mouth on something. When a dog puts their mouth on something, they're actually in that moment owning it. So if your dog likes to possess things or wants to possess something to get your attention, in either case, they're putting their mouth on it, and that is why they might chew on something. Sometimes chewing is how they learn, oddly enough, to get your attention, but it's through this possession. So, because there are multiple reasons why to do it, and because it's kind of a difficult thing to catch all the time, I recommend that you train your dog to overcome these things in a multi-approach. I think that plan is the best. In fact, I usually use several approaches for every issue a dog has, because it's usually just not one little cure. You need to have a corrective and praise-oriented phase, and you also need a way of kind of like sort of building up their tolerance for certain things. So you kind of have both things or three things going on at the same time, so the dog sort of, it reinforces the training all in one direction. You're sort of changing the dog's perspective on the universe by doing that. And you're going to get a better result if you actually use more than one method for most things. All right, so let's first address all these multi-layered approaches that I have for getting your dog to stop chewing things. One is you need to address the spatial boundaries. And this is what I mean. The dog has to understand that you are owner of the space in the den and all the objects in that den, including their own toys and their own food bowl. Okay, so even though it's a dog toy, it's a dog's food bowl, it's actually yours because you paid for it. You went hunting and you got it and you paid for it and you provided it. So it is actually yours that you are sharing. So teaching the dog spatial boundaries, and this is true, by the way, the stuff that I talk about is not just for puppies, it's for adult dogs too. It works across the board. It's just that puppies tend to be a little more persistent in actually keep, like, you know, pushing the boundaries because their attention span is like 2 seconds sometimes. So back to this establishing ownership of the den and the objects in the den. You own it. So you are also responsible for teaching the spatial boundaries with all of those objects. So don't be surprised if you bring a new dog home, puppy or not, that the dog is going to test that out. And you have to actually monitor that. It's not something they're just going to outgrow. If they get to choose something, remember, it is self-reinforcing. So if you let me eat chocolate at free will, I will just eat more chocolate if I was just a dog, right? And almost that's kind of true now, even though technically as a human I should know better. But the deal is that you want to establish those boundaries, and there's multiple ways to do that. One, crating. I know you've heard this before. Tough titties, I'm going to say it again. I even crate the cats, mostly because they eat blinds and they steal food out of the cabinets in the kitchen, and they pee on things because they're territorial. And it's a long story, but they're all penned and they get out for specific exercise, and they're actually much calmer and more relaxed and happier. The dogs. Let's get back to the dogs. The dogs have to learn that the crate is their space, and it teaches them to be sort of off-duty, and it gives you a break. If you have to monitor their owning the space and the objects in the space all the time, that's an exhausting job. You have things to do, like actually go out and hunt, i.e. get a job and do things, etc. You know, go out to movies with your girlfriend or whatever. So you got to use crating to teach your dog that that is their space, this is my space. So the crating is hugely important in this. I can't tell you how many clients or students of mine who are like, well, I don't want to put the dog in a crate, but how do I stop them from chewing my furniture when I'm gone? You can't. You can't do it that way unless you can bilocate. Now, you can talk to St. Padre Pio about that, but I don't think he's talking to you. He's not talking to me about that because he's passed away. It's bilocation. Unless you have superhuman powers or you are a superhero certified, all right, you can't do it. So you're going to have to crate the dog. You're going to have to set them up where they're not going to fail. So they're going to actually succeed because they cannot chew stuff while you are gone. That's just the way it goes. That's how you have to start it out. Hopefully, over time, with multiple approaches, your dog will be allowed and able to handle being in an out, open, free area. However, if your dog is a very as what I call treat-oriented dog, i.e. they like to possess things. They are food-oriented. They like to grab their toys. They own their beds. They're very mouthy, etc. They are big chewers. You may not have that opportunity. It just depends on the dog. You might have to crate your dog during the day for every day for the rest of its life. But we'll find out. Start off with just a couple of months and see if it settles down. But I'm saying you need the crating. Now, that's number one. Number two for crating is that you need an out. You need an out before you get frustrated. And I'll talk about that when I'm talking about, actually dealing with the second approach. Okay, so I'll bring it back up again. But the crating is an out also. It's a way to end the chewing and correction thing and not have a big game that the dog makes it into. But I'll explain that later. So hold on the crating thought if you're taking notes. Number 2, monitoring possessive behavior. That's another way that you have to, and I mentioned that already, establishing your ownership of the den and objects in the den, you have to monitor that possessive behavior. So let me talk about some possessive behaviors that's going to, if you don't monitor those then and redirect them, then you're going to end up having a big chewing mess with your dog. 1, running around grabbing everything. I have a miniature Australian Shepherd puppy at my place for board and train, Margot, whom I've mentioned in other shows. She is currently the one in my house doing that, but this is a pretty common thing. If you have a dog who gets excited and starts grabbing a toy, and then as soon as it sees another toy, runs over to it and then tries to grab it at the same time, or drops that one and grabs that one, and then runs over to it and grabs another one, and then runs over and grabs another one, and another grabs, and they're just like on freaking speed, and they're trying to grab everything, they have a problem. And you need to address it. If you allow that dog to put their mouth on everything, because it'll eventually include your remote control and your tennis shoes by the door and the leash and everything else in this frenzied process, like some sort of shark fest, on Shark Week, just like the crazy feeding frenzy. Basically what that dog's doing in that moment is saying, this is mine, and 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 this is mine. And you can see when dogs do this, they get really high. They get hormonally high. They're like their eyes are rolling in the backs of their heads. And I actually had someone notice that her eyes would turn red because they're so bloodshot from the hormones. And that's something you want to actually monitor. So it's okay that you have a dog that's excited about a toy. But if they're so possessive that they have to go grab everything as soon as they see it, you need to stop them. So as soon as they grab the second thing, pick up the first thing. If they go for a third thing, stop them, walk them to the crate. They need to calm down. Another thing you also need to do is you don't need to have a whole bunch of toys and stuff around. Okay? Obviously you have your things too, but if they're starting to go into that feeding frenzy, there is no training the dog in the moment of correcting them for dropping. They're going too fast. So you can't sit there and go, drop it, good girl, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that in that moment with that feeding frenzy behavior, that's not going to work. It's just they're too jacked up on hormones and they can't learn in that moment. So you're going to actually have to walk them to the crate until they calm the H down, and then you pick up the extra toys. In general, I usually don't have more than 2 toys down on the floor in the entire house ever. So, and the reason is because, one, I don't want to trip on them, but mostly because if you have a lot of toys, you're encouraging that possessive behavior, that feeding frenzy of back and forth. I want to own this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And they start getting crazy, and there's sort of this weird psychological mindset that we're actually encouraging by them allowing them to grab everything in this frantic state. So I had to teach that dog not to be possessive and to understand spatial boundaries within the house. So when it comes to those sorts of behaviors, look out for a dog, especially if you have a visiting dog. Maybe your dog doesn't do, but if a dog visits and starts grabbing everything, and then you wonder why your dog wanted to bite them, that's why. So don't let a visiting dog do that to your stuff and your dog's stuff in the house, although your dog's stuff is yours. All right? Put all that stuff away. Just out. Okay? Just avoid the situation. Okay? So, just be highly aware of that you're just like, oh, well, the dog's really excited. Yes, that's a great observation. Thank you for stating the obvious. But why? Because they're trying to tag everything. I even have 2 identical water bowls side by side. And partially because I was lazy about making sure I had to refill it every day. I did, but I wanted a leeway because sometimes I had several animals. Now I keep it down, even though the cats are created and they're not really drinking out of that. I keep it down to test the dogs. And if I have a dog coming over and they're drinking frantically out of one bowl and then dipping into another one, drinking out of that one, and that one, and that one, and back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, back and forth, they're also possessing. And they're not respecting spatial boundaries. So I will actually